Chapter 1 God's Joke. She traveled through time. In the chaos, a severe tearing pain hit her, and countless undercurrents twisted her body. No, not just her body. It seemed to crush her soul as well. She really wanted to lose consciousness completely, but something seemed to be attracting her. Gritting her teeth, if her consciousness could still drive asterisk, she was indeed gritting her teeth. She almost lost consciousness, and after an unknown amount of time, she finally felt relaxed and completely lost consciousness. The trees, as large as several people could hug each other, were towering into the sky, and their broad and thick branches and leaves blocked the sun. Occasionally, a star of sunlight shone through, and felt that she must have had a strange dream. The tall trees and broad leaves were beyond her imagination. They were not any plants she was familiar with. Thick vines snaked upwards along the trees, with scarlet fruits hanging on the vines. A black shadow jumped over. When she looked closely, she saw that it was a bird with 4 claws and a huge head. It quickly picked a few fruits, glanced left and right, and ran away. She thought that she might really be dreaming. This strange creature and its extraordinary speed were beyond the scope of her knowledge. Well, maybe her knowledge was too narrow. There might be such a creature living in some corner of the world. Moreover, she really hoped that she was really dreaming. If it was a dream, then the plane crash in her memory was not real, and the tearing up and down in the darkness was not real either. When she woke up, would she be next to her parents? Unfortunately, the heartbreaking pain all over her body reminded her that this was not a dream. So where did she fall? Is this unreal thing in front of her some mysterious primeval forest unknown to her, or is it a hallucination caused by her pain? No matter where it is, with her current appearance, she probably doesn't have time to figure it out, because she clearly feels that the strength of her body is passing away little by little, and she can't feel anything else except pain. Even the smallest movement of blinking is difficult for her. Even if she mobilizes all her strength, she can't make herself move even her little finger. She thought she was about to die, and her clear consciousness now was probably a flashback. Just when she thought she was about to die, a twisted airflow appeared in the air in front of her. Silver light flashed in the twisted airflow, and then a figure appeared in front of her out of thin air. Brown eyes, high nose, silver-gray robe worn on a tall and perfect body, typical Western face and dress. Is this the god of death? Anne's eyes showed confusion. Just when she was confused, the god of death knelt down in front of her, held up her head with one hand, and leaned over with a smile. His handsome face grew bigger and bigger in front of her. The god of death pressed his forehead against hers, and bang, seemed like something crashed into her brain. Huge energy invaded arbitrarily, giving her a splitting headache. The severe pain exceeded her ability to accept, and her body, which had no strength left, erupted into a huge roar. The pain still continued. The arrogant energy did not stop at all, and every inch of the body's cells trembled with pain. And was so painful that she wanted to curse. Why couldn't she just die peacefully at the last moment of her life? Why did she have to be punished in the end? Although the pain continued, she knew that she might not be alive for long, and memories were pouring out like a tide. She is a child of mixed Chinese and Western descent. She has received different educations from China and the West since she was a child. In order to show that her country's education is better, her parents and her parents' family tried their best to teach her a lot of things, including Western aristocratic elite education and traditional Chinese elite education. She admitted that she was quite complaining at that time, and she secretly slandered everyone from God to bodhisattvas in her heart. But other than that, she was still very happy as her parents loved her and her ancestors loved her. After her younger brother was born, the attention of the elders shifted, coupled with her own struggles and good performance. Well, she admitted that sometimes it was a deceptive performance, but overall she was still a filial and good junior. Finally, her parents agreed to let her go to school like a normal child, except for some necessary extracurricular tutoring, and no longer force her to learn more things. After a few years of relaxing life, she just flew to see her grandparents. When she encountered strong turbulence, the plane was shattered into pieces, and the passengers and crew members were killed one after another. Could it be that she was being punished because she lived too happily? Although she is not the only child in the family, her parents and elders love her very much, even after her younger brother was born. She didn't know what kind of pain her death would bring to her family. Several times, she wanted to faint, but she couldn't give up when she thought of her loved ones. However, her consciousness began to become confused under the powerful impact. Dad, Mom. The strong consciousness disturbed the surrounding air, and the god of death frowned, but did not stop his movements. The air became more and more twisted. The spiral airflow was clearly visible, and the god of death finally stopped his movements. This little girl's spiritual power was so strong that she found the space-time rift that had just been torn but not repaired. Consciousness passed through the cracks and quickly rushed to the side of the loved ones. Dear, don't be sad anymore, and is an angel. God must have missed her so much that he called her back. This is Dad's voice. She must be living happily in another world, so don't be sad. Can we pray for her? This time, in addition to hearing her father's voice, she also vaguely understood her mother's crying voice. Dad, is my sister in another world? Then I have to pray for her too. Yes, sister, she is in another world. Let's pray for her together. If and could still retain her other senses despite the intense pain, she would definitely find that tears were already streaming down her face at this moment. Father, mother, brother? The broken body murmured the names of relatives. Death sighed. I'm sorry, the child chosen by fate. The god of death stretched out his hand, gathered energy, and the silver light suddenly appeared, cutting off the connection between time and space. All around, it was calm. When she woke up again, the pain all over her body seemed to have disappeared. Annie moved her arms, and it turned out that she could control them. She even raised her arms and finally turned over and sat up. Once again, and felt like she was really having a dream. A dream that was too fantastic to be believed. Now, she knew what the god of death was pushing into her head, knowledge about the continent where she was. This is the Gushan continent, one of the many space realms in the vast universe. The mother goddess built the earth and shaped the gods to rule the earth. When the sun rose and set and the earth developed in an orderly manner, the mother goddess dissipated her power into the atmosphere and turned into the power of law to restrain the gods and the creatures on the earth. In other words, she traveled through time, which is amazing, isn't it? And that god of death is actually not the god of death, but the god of space, one of the gods. He accidentally tore apart the space domain of the continent, causing a rift in time and space. The turbulence caused by the rift in time and space caused an air crash, and she was unfortunate enough to encounter it. But fortunately, she was not lost in the turbulence of time and space and traveled here. The irresponsible guy who started all this, the space god, found a new body for her. He took her soul out of her broken body and injected it into a new body as compensation. As for him, because he broke the laws of time and space, he was so weakened by the power of the laws that he could only fall into a deep sleep to restore his strength. Therefore, after appearing briefly to deal with her, he disappeared. What an irresponsible guy. Annie complained. Looking at his new body, he saw that his young and fair arms had large and small scratches, but they were not serious. Her long black wheat-like hair had already become tangled. The skirt she was wearing was torn and torn. Her knees were covered in red and purple bruises, and her whole body was dirty. Her chest is still flat. This body is 12 years old and has grown for some unknown reason. It is as thin as a small bean sprout. This body is 5 years younger than her original age. According to memory, she is an aristocratic lady from Prishit in the Eastern Continent, Annie Ash. Coincidentally, she is also called and the same name as her. On her way to study at the Kane Royal Academy of Magic in the Kane Empire, Miss Ash was attacked and lost in the world of Warcraft Forest. She accidentally ate the poisonous fruit in the world of Warcraft Forest and died. Then her body was lent to her by the space god. Prishit is a small, remote country in the eastern continent, and she is a minor noble in a small country. Logically speaking, she is not qualified or has enough capital to study in Kane. However, because he was tested in a magic test with a strong affinity for magic and a rare talent for all magic, he was given an important task by the family. After paying a lot of money, he was sent to Kane to study with the little Prince Prisat. After and read the memory, she realized that Miss Ash, the original owner of this body, was probably attacked because of the little prince, because the attack force was concentrated on the little prince, and the guards were also focused on protecting the little prince. In the chaos, she escaped into the Warcraft Forest under the cover of the only two family guards. The two heroic guards used their bodies to resist the enemy's steps, giving Miss Ash time to escape, and she escaped into the Warcraft Forest. Not long after, poor Miss Ash got lost. Of course, even if she didn't get lost, it was impossible for a child to survive in the world of Warcraft Forest. Miss Ash probably knew this, so she only wandered around the edge of the world of Warcraft Forest, waiting for the little prince's guards to repel the enemies before sending someone to find her. After waiting hard for 2 days, no one was there, and I was very hungry, so I picked fruits growing on the bushes and ate them. Miss Ash is not a stupid child. She went to pick and eat fruits after seeing a small beast picking them up. However, Miss Ash probably ignored that humans and animals are different. Especially, this is a forest of monsters, and the fruits that monsters can eat may be highly poisonous to humans. In fact, the fruit that Miss Ash ate was not very poisonous and would only cause stomach cramps. However, Miss Ash had been frightened in the forest for 2 days and her body was extremely weak, so she finally died because of this small fruit. After sorting out these thoughts, Annie knew that not only had she traveled through time, but she had also come to a world of swords and magic. Chapter 2: Difficult Forest Exploration for Survival. The sky in Gishan was no different from the earth. It was still sunrise and sunset, even a time, and didn't feel much different from the earth. It was just that the sky was unusually blue and bright, and the trees were unusually lush and lush. Regarding the matter of time travel, Annie was still somewhat helpless. She didn't know whether she should cry or laugh. It was really a miracle among miracles that she survived the plane crash. However, she survived, but she never had the chance to return to Earth to meet her relatives and friends. In the message left by the space god, the power of the laws of the space field is unfathomable. Even the powerful space god cannot control it, and the power of the turbulence of time and space is even more mysterious. If it were not for a coincidence, Annie, like the other people on the plane, would have been annihilated in the turbulence of time and space, with no bones left, her soul scattered, and the chance of returning to Earth is infinitely close to nothing. Thinking of loving her loved ones on Earth, Annie's eyes turned red, but she held back tears. Instead, she looked up at the sky with a smile. The words she heard from her father and brother that day floated in her ears. She believed that as time went by, her mother would be convinced by her father that she had gone to another world and pray for her. And she has indeed arrived in another world, a strange world, but she remembers her father's words and her brother's words. She knows that they must be praying for her. She knows that no matter which world she is in, they will pray for her and pray for her happiness and peace. Mom and Dad, Annie has indeed arrived in another world. In this world, I will keep praying for you, wishing you a safe life. Goodbye, Mom and Dad. Goodbye, brother. Goodbye, everything on Earth. And Ash's little face was firmer than ever before. Dear people, please cherish each other even if we are on opposite ends of the world. Annie, different time and space, same name, different body, same soul. She will live well. After calming down, Annie began to look around carefully. This was not the place she saw when she opened her eyes when she came to Gushin, because at this moment, in front of her eyes were no longer dense trees covering the sky, but a small lake. Surrounding the lake are towering ancient trees of various species. In Miss Ash's memory, Miss Ash has never been here, so this must be the work of the space god. He moved her here. Of course, it is easier to survive in a place with water. But, damn space god, has he forgotten the fact that Annie is only a 12-year-old child? Couldn't she be moved to a town, to a place where there are people, or even send her directly back to Ash's house in Plishit? Forget it. Maybe all that guy's power has been used to repair the time and space rift, and there is no way to teleport her further. And comforted herself. Smart, and although her guess was not right, it was not far off. Annie moved her small body while thinking about the conditions she could take advantage of. Although Miss Ash died after eating the poisonous fruit, she still had a full meal, so Annie, who borrowed Miss Ash's body, felt that she was in good health at the moment. Miss Ash has a very good talent for magic and has also learned some basic magic. After thinking about it and stretched out her hand according to her memory, meditated, and recited a spell silently. Fireball. In the center of the palm, a fireball the size of a thumb rose tremblingly. Hi, it worked. Annie couldn't help laughing, and the trembling little fireball was extinguished with her smile. Haha, it's pretty good to succeed for the first time. Well, it seems I'm quite talented. Annie said to herself in embarrassment, completely ignoring the memory that when the original Miss Ash cast the fireball technique, a fireball the size of a fist appeared. Although it was not very aggressive, it could last for a long time. Although and possesses Miss Ash's memory, she has never really practiced magic meditation. Controlling mental and magical power is not just theoretical. She can successfully cast the fireball technique without any practice. It can be said that it is entirely due to the instinct of this body. I tried several small magics in succession, such as water arrows, lighting, and drifting, with some successes and some failures. Even if it succeeds, it is not very powerful, but for Annie, this is already very good. At least she has used the fireball technique, so the source of the fire is not a problem. Check your body carefully again. Apart from various degrees of scratches and falls all over her body, there were no other major problems. There was a heart-shaped necklace hanging around her neck. The pattern on the necklace was Miss Ash's family pattern. It was made of pure gold. The pendant could be opened. Her name, and Ash, was engraved on one side of the necklace, and Miss Ash's head was engraved on the other side. This thing is very important to Annie. If she can get out of the Warcraft forest, this will be her identity certificate. And judged that the little prince and his escorts had probably been wiped out, and it was almost impossible for her to walk back to Presat on her own. She could only resort to the next best thing and go to Kane Royal Academy of Magic, which was very close to the Warcraft forest, to continue her studies, and began to clean up all her belongings. It is a necklace that will be used to prove your identity in the future, so it must be put away and cannot be moved. There were several pieces of rags, which she tore from under her tattered long skirt. Because the quality of the skirt was so good and she was weak, it took a lot of effort to get it off. Now her skirt has become a short skirt that does not reach the knees. These rags, the small ones can be used as cleaning supplies, and a larger one can be used as a baggage. There was still some lace on the skirt, which was already torn. After she tore it off, she picked out a few pieces that were still usable and braided them into a braid to tie up her hair. There's nothing else. Uncle Space God, are you sure you're not playing tricks on me? How do you want me to live like this? Annie once again complained about Uncle Space God. Poor Uncle Space God has since become Annie's mantra. Uncle, who made you the culprit that caused Annie to be in this situation? Complaining was a complaint, but Annie dragged her short legs to the lake, lay down on the shore, picked up the lake water with her hands, brought it to her mouth, and drank it. The sweet water flowed down her throat and moistened her dry stomach. Her body instantly felt more relaxed. She drank a few more handfuls of water to satisfy her hunger. But this was not the solution after all. so Annie began to wander around the lake. To survive, finding food is the first priority. There were some unknown fruits in the bushes under the big tree. Due to Miss Ash's previous experience, Annie didn't dare to eat them. She could only try to target the surrounding small animals. This place is quite magical, and I don't know where it is in the Warcraft forest. From the surrounding environment, it seems that there are no large monsters coming or going because there are no footprints on the ground, and there are no signs of broken branches on the bushes. More powerful proof is that the small animals here, such as the snow-white rabbits and the pheasants with colorful feathers, forgive her for not knowing their real names, let's call them that, etc., eat their own food freely. One was gnawing grass, and the other was pecking at insects. When Annie tried to approach them, they did not avoid them, but stopped eating and looked at her. It was not until Annie tried to catch a rabbit that the rabbit reacted and disappeared in an instant at a speed invisible to Annie's naked eyes. Much later, when Annie learned that this kind of long-haired snow-white rabbit was called the wind rabbit, she realized how stupid it was to try to catch a wind rabbit with human power. After trying twice, she even used magic, such as a small earth shield, to try to block the opponent's angle, but the slowly rising earthen bags, not to mention rabbits, even pheasants could cross them with a single stride, which really embarrassed her. Annie is determined to learn magic well when she goes to Cain. In the end, this battle between man and beast ended with the victory of rabbit and chicken, and then gave up on them. Panting and resting against a tree, Annie looked at the sky and touched her belly, feeling quite helpless. The scenery here is so beautiful. The lake is quiet, and the fish swim around without any worries. By the way, fish. Annie suddenly thought, since rabbits are not afraid of people, are fish also afraid? Annie found a shore with shallower water. There were some small and medium-sized fish swimming happily. Annie walked gently into the water and stood among the fish. Sure enough, the fish did not flee in panic, but would swim away quickly when she encountered them. Having learned the previous lesson, Annie knew that the possibility of catching the fish directly with her hands was zero. After thinking about it, she exited the water and dug a hole where the water bank met. Water poured in from the lake, and then she sat down and waited. After a while, a small fish swam into the pit she made, and was a little excited but still did not take action. After a while, the small fish swam away, and watched it leave with jealousy, but she continued to wait calmly. Finally, 2 half-sized fish swam into the pit, and thought to herself, Earth Shield Technique, and cast magic and raised an earth shield on the side of the pit near the water. The vibrations on the ground aroused the vigilance of the fish, and knew that at this height, it did not require the strength to jump over the dragon gate. It only took a slight jump for the fish to regain freedom. Therefore, regardless of her physical fatigue, and continued to use the Earth Shield Technique. 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 Finally, the height of the small earth shield reached the position of her knees. No matter how hard the fish jumped, it could not jump out of Annie's 5-finger mountain. Annie finally stopped and lost all her strength. Annie knew that she just overused her magic, but she was still very happy. First, she got food, and second, she felt that although the basic magic was useless, it was still very useful when used continuously. After resting enough, Annie picked up a lot of dead branches and picked out a relatively hard and strong one, which she used to string together the 2 fish in the pit. Although she lost a little effort when catching the fish in this small pit, you can't talk no matter what, and she was finally caught by her. She didn't know how to kill the fish, and she didn't have the tools to disembowel the fish. So she found a quick stone and scraped off the fish scales, and directly skewered the fish, used the fireball technique to light the dead branches, and grilled the fish. After a while, the smell of fish appeared, and swallowed her saliva. When the fish skin began to burn, and couldn't wait to eat the 2 fish. She almost had her tongue burned off because she was so eager. After eating the 2 fish and drinking a few more mouthfuls of lake water, and felt much better. Although her stomach was still not full, she did not dare to eat more, so she lay on the grass, motionless. The fire next to her then made a tingling sound. The sun slowly fell to the west, and who had eaten and drank enough, fell asleep unknowingly in her extreme fatigue. Chapter 3: A lizard appears in the restricted space. If she wasn't exhausted, Annie wouldn't just fall asleep on the grass. If she was awake, she would at least find a tree hole, get some leaves to spread on the ground, and then find some larger soft leaves to use as bedding. She didn't expect that she just took a short nap and then fell into a deep sleep. When Annie woke up again, it was already a night filled with stars. The fire next to it has long been extinguished, and the night wind is blowing the lake water, bringing a cool breeze. Annie shuddered and blamed herself a little for why she accidentally fell asleep, but she could understand this body very well. Miss Ash's body was really exhausted, both physically and mentally, so after a good meal, her body relaxed and she accidentally fell asleep. Turning over and sitting up, Annie was full of energy. The Warcraft forest was silent, and the stars were reflected in the lake water, twinkling charmingly. The breeze rippled the lake water. It was really a beautiful night. But Annie was not in the mood to enjoy the beautiful scenery. She cast a light magic lighting technique, and light as small as a fist shot out from her palm. Annie determined the location of the dead branches remaining during the day and used a fireball technique to ignite the dead branches. In my memory, it was summer in the Gushan continent, so Miss Ash was wearing very thin clothes. But after all, it was in the forest and by the lake. The night was still a bit cold. At night, it was obviously a wrong choice to go to the forest to find suitable accommodation at this time. In addition, there were no large monsters nearby. Finally, Annie decided to spend the night by the lake first. Leaning against the fire, Annie felt a little warmer, and then, according to Miss Ash's memory, she began to meditate. As a body with magical talent, she must not waste Miss Ash's magical talent. Because she had the memory of Miss Ash's body, Annie quickly entered the state. Around her, colorful magic element particles gradually emerged and entered Anne's body in an orderly manner as she breathed. Suddenly, a large number of silver gray particles like starlight appeared around the body and were quickly inhaled into Annie's body, causing other particles to dissipate a lot. Annie, who was meditating smoothly, suddenly saw a ripple in her consciousness. Her meditation was interrupted, and Annie opened her eyes. There was still silence all around. So what interrupted her meditation? And looked around, and suddenly found a silver light shining faintly behind the black trees at the other end of the lakeshore. After hesitating, Anne decided to go and have a look. Taking a dead branch that had just burned one end as a torch in the fire, Annie walked towards the direction of the light. The silver light disappeared and appeared, guiding Annie forward. Leaving the lakeside, stepping on the thick dead branches, Annie searched for the source of the light, going deeper and deeper. Strangely enough, she was extremely intimate with something in this silver light, yes, just like those silver gray particles during meditation. Of course, those silver gray particles are not just called silver gray particles, but space magic elements. There is relevant knowledge in the message left by the space god. She was able to successfully survive the turbulence of time and space precisely because she had an affinity for time and space magic and a strong spiritual power. Time and space magic, that is, time magic and space magic. Due to the constraints of the law, time is irreversible, so there is no time magic element on the Gushan continent, but there is a space magic element, which is the silver gray particles she saw during meditation. In order to compensate her, the space god left her some learning methods and methods of using space magic. Of course, she will not waste these, but the most important thing now is to figure out what the silver light in front of her is. Finally came to the flashing silver light. What did she see? Her father, mother, and brother waved to her in the silver light, and was a little excited. "Dad, Mom," she cried, tears sliding down her face. She thought she would never see her relatives again. She thought. Her hands shook with excitement, and a spark from the torch burned on Annie's little arm. Pain, and sobered up. Impossible. This is not the Earth at all, and she is no longer that, and ash. The relatives in front of her are just illusions. Although she still didn't feel the silver light was harmful, she stared at the silver light warily. Gradually, the silver light dimmed. Holding the torch high, she finally saw the situation in front of her clearly. An animal that looked like a lizard was lying there weakly and panting, its round eyes staring at her. What is this? Not far behind the lizard, the black mass seemed to be a large cave. With the cave as the center, there was a large spatial restriction. This was what Annie felt. Space restriction, a type of space magic, was related to this in the message left by the space god. This was why she felt friendly just now. The silver light passed through the space restriction, bringing with it the breath of space magic elements. The lizard was lying on the edge of the ban, and its body was glowing with silver light again. The illusion was about to appear, but Annie couldn't help but say, "It's useless. This magic is useless to me." She used the common language of Gushin continent. This lizard is probably a warcraft, and it is a high-level one because according to Miss Ash's memory, the soul magic that can confuse people is a high-level magic, so this is probably a high-level warcraft. As soon as he finished speaking, the silver light dimmed, and the lizard raised its round eyes and asked, "What is magic?" The lizard screamed, and it was a child's voice, which startled Anne. "Can you talk?" "Humph, of course," the child's voice shouted. Annie was a little shocked and didn't know how to continue communicating with a lizard. So, in the night wind, a lizard and a beautiful girl froze the scene, staring at each other. After staring for a long time, Annie thought the scene was too funny. After thinking about it, she asked the lizard, "Why are you imprisoned here? Who imprisoned you?" As far as she knows, space magic has disappeared in the Gushin continent for a long time. Even the space god does not exist in Miss Ai's memory. In the memory left by the space god, the space restriction in front of her is a very high-level space restriction. "I don't know. I have been imprisoned here since I was born, probably for hundreds of years." The child's voice was a little muffled, and the lizard stared at Annie with its round eyes. "Huh? Hundreds of years." Annie was even more shocked. A magical beast could live for hundreds of years and looked like a lizard. She suddenly thought of a possibility. "Do you have wings?" The lizard looked at Annie in confusion and nodded. "Have." With a whisper, the transparent wings attached to the bodies stretched out, and one word popped into Annie's mind. Dragon. Dragon, really dragon, Western dragon. Because it was night. Because the lizard, no, because the little dragon hadn't spread its wings before, and its wings were transparent. Annie didn't recognize it for a moment, but if she looked carefully, she saw faint colorful colors flowing on the transparent wings. But no, in Miss Ash's knowledge, dragons collectively withdrew from the Gushin continent for no reason more than 1,000 years ago and settled in the infinitely extending sea in the south. They never appeared on the Gushin continent again. In other words, dragons have been extinct in the Gushin continent for more than 1,000 years. Moreover, isn't the dragon clan an intelligent race with a mysterious inheritance? How could it be a little lizard that didn't even know what magic was? So, what is this lizard in front of me? Well,